winds as they blow, the cities they will crumble into the sea below. Kingdoms and empires are lost to history, but none will forget the names of legends and kings.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 5 of HawgCast, the official podcast of the 442nd Fighter Wing. I'm Bob Jennings, the Superintendent of Public Affairs. I'm joined today by Brigadier General Steve Nasty Nestor, the commander of the 442nd Fighter Wing, Major Shelley Eckleby, the Public Affairs Officer, and a few legends from the wing who've come back into town this weekend for a special occasion. 2 of whom are former wing commanders and also went on to be 10th Air Force commanders, and the other is the former wing command chief. General Nestor will introduce the 3 of them in just a few seconds, because right now it's...
Nasty time.
Hi, Shelley.
Hi, sir. Welcome back. It's August UTA. We haven't had a UTA in a couple months, and we are joined by a few really cool people, and I'll kind of let you introduce them, sir. But before that, we just kind of wanted to talk about what we've been doing in Peru, kind of the conference that you just got back from, and then we'll transition to the guests that we have on today.
Awesome. Yeah, I have 3 guests in here. Former Command Chief Nudd. First name again? Jim Nudd. Sorry. Retired Major General Eric Overturf and retired Major General Brian Borgen. Both were 442nd Fighter Wing commanders, and they're here for Leo Brown's retirement, Chris Barton's retirement, chief ceremony, and it's good to see you guys back. It's awesome to bring old faces back, and I think people really like it when people come back for events like this. So thanks for coming in, and we'll get to some storytelling in a bit. Like Shelley said, it's been a busy last 2 or 3 months. We didn't have a UTA in July. I don't know if you guys did that, but we stopped having UTAs in July, and we do a super UTA in April for exercise, where we do some kind of exercise to get ourselves ready for deployments and AEFs, and it's a yearly kind of thing. And then it gives folks July to be with their families and have vacations. Another thing we do, our CE guys do a super UTA once a quarter, a 4-day UTA, so they can get off base and work on heavy equipment. So they do a quarterly 4-day UTA, a 2-day UTA another month, and no UTAs another month. And it's very flexible, and they love it. They like it. They just got back from Aviano, Italy, had a really good time over there. And just like at the conference, people said, the senior enlisted leader specifically said, people are getting out of the reserves because they aren't getting to do their mission, and they don't get to go TDY and do fun stuff. So part of our deal here is I wanted to get good trips for the wing, right? When I took over, I called up General Suro and Yusefi, and I said, we want to come over to Europe and do something, and please pay for it. and he got us lined up a year ago to do Defender Europe, and that was paid for mostly about 75 or 80% by the Army. We broke down some barriers on how to get pay transferred from Army money to Air Force money, and talking to Shania Thompson, the FM at FRC, he said it was kind of groundbreaking for the reserves, and it'll open up a lot more future joint deployments that we can use to how to replicate that to get paid from the Army or Marines or Joint Forces when we're out doing joint exercises. So we did Spain and Greece in May. Took 10 jets over there, 5 at each location. Great trip. I think we discussed that on a previous podcast, but it was awesome. Captain Jake Smith ran that, a young captain, reservist. He had his eyes watered on how to run and lead a trip like that. And then we just got done with a Peru trip in South America. I believe it was the first ever Air Force Reserve-led Air Expeditionary Wing. Colonel Mike Leonis was kind of voluntold to lead 550 reservists to Peru. Supposed to be Ecuador and Peru originally, but it ended up just being Peru. And he did a phenomenal job. General Healy and General Radliff couldn't have been happier with the job that Rio, Keith Yersak, Chico, Chief Urbano, a whole list of folks that went down there from this wing, combined with the Davis Monthan A-10s. Colonel Waring was Ops Group Commander from Moody. Folks from 22nd, from 4th Air Force, from 12th Air Force out at Tucson. Unbelievable trip to build partnerships down in South America. The Chinese are down in South America, poking around, doing lots of different things with ports and satellite communications and influencing the region, right? And we want to show that we can do the same. And it was a really successful trip. So thanks to all those guys for that. This weekend, I just got back from the Air Force Reserve Wing Commanders Conference, and the 10th Air Force Change of Command. General Torch Saber took over for General Brian Radliff. And Torch, you guys probably know her as well or better than I do. I think General Borgen probably hired her. We can talk about that later as a wing commander at Hill. But what a background this lady has as a F-15 Wizzo, F-16 pilot, F-35 pilot. She's flown an AFSOC. She's flown drones. Unbelievable leader, very approachable, and I'm looking forward to working for and with General Sabrick at 10th Air Force. Part of what came out of that meeting was General Healy, and his top 5 priorities. I thought it was very interesting that all 5 of them were out of 10th Air Force, which is the numbered Air Force that the 442nd is in. And the second priority on his list, the first was Homestead, because we own a base down there and an F-16 unit. And the second was Whiteman Air Force Base. The 442nd is his number 2 priority. So there's a big visit this week. The Secretary of the Air Force, Secretary Kendall, is coming to get a B-2 flight and to see the base. And I'm going to have an opportunity to meet him and brag about the 442nd. And we're going to talk a lot about future missions and what that looks like. Currently, for you guys out there, we still don't have a program of record post A-10 and FY28. So 4.5 years from now, we're supposed to divest the A-10 and our maintenance and ops personnel. And it's kind of crushing a little bit of our hiring ability and our ability to retain people. So they know that. Secretary Kendall will know that. And actually, General Healy's going to meet with him 3 days after me. So we're kind of on the same page on the message we want to send to Secretary Kendall about the great work this wing has done since 9/11 and the need to continue that down the road in another platform, whether it's the F-15EX, the F-35, post-block F-16s. We want to maintain a fighter mission here in the 442nd Fighter Wing. So that'll be fun. I mentioned 2 retirements. Leo Brown, the voice of the 442nd, is retiring in a few hours at 1500, and Chris Barton, longtime maintenance crew chief, working in maintenance, senior master sergeant. Awesome. If you've ever seen some of his models that he makes, you guys need to check those out. But we're going to attend both of those this afternoon, and we're going to miss both those guys immensely. And then we just had 2 guys pin on chief at 10 o'clock, Tyler Bain and Chief Mullen, Brandon Mullen, and both working in maintenance, doing great stuff. And like Chief Berrien said, pretty good turnover of chiefs in this organization. He's doing a phenomenal job of picking the right people to lead and be senior enlisted leaders in this wing. And the future's bright for the guys we have leading the enlisted force with those guys. So that's kind of what's going on. The things that concern me for the next 2 months are getting through the rest of the fiscal year monetarily. We had a little bit of a hiccup with AGR money and overhires of AGRs. We kind of discussed that. We've had to use a little bit of RPA and pull more people onto their AGR tours that were on RPA tours. So we're kind of handling that and get our Jaded Thunder trip in September up to Volk Field completed and doing that. It's going to be a good opportunity, again, paid for mostly by another source of money, revenue from the folks that we're going to be working with up at Volk Field in Wisconsin. And nobody's busier than this wing. Nobody does more than this wing in the whole Air Force Reserves. I mean, it's the accolades I received at the Wing Commanders Conference from General Healy, from General Radliff, from General Saber. She's like, I don't know how you guys do what you do. So I wanted to say thanks to the people that made all those trips happen. I know you had a good time on them. I did as well when I went to Greece and Spain to see you guys. And that's kind of, I think it helps with recruiting and retention. When we go to cool places and do neat missions, I think it helps retain good talent. All right, enough of that stuff. So, Turf, Board, Chief Nudd, man, thanks for coming. I appreciate you guys coming back here. And I just wanted to sit down and kind of shoot the breeze with you guys about your careers, what it meant to be part of the 442nd, rehash some memories of Leo Brown, or what. I'll start with you, Turf. So you're a F-22 group commander. You flew the Viper F-16. What brought you into coming to the 442nd Fighter Wing?
First, thanks for having us here. This is incredible. When I just listened to what you went through with this wing's doing, I go, some things have changed. I think they have a better wing commander now than when I was here, but some things have not changed a bit. The way this wing steps up and goes and does missions all around the world, whether it's combat deployments or the kind of training that inspires people like you just described, it is so cool to come back and see it. to be honest, it's a little bit selfish. The reason I came to this wing originally was I wanted to fly the A-10. As you said, I'd flown the F-16 and the F-22 previously, but I always had a little bit of gun envy, I think, and I wanted to go. I'd seen that gun shoot on the ranges before, and I said, I gotta, if I have any opportunity whatsoever to shoot the gun on the A-10, I want to do it. And as a side note, it was every bit as good as I thought it was going to be the first time I shot. I think it's the only time in an airplane I've actually just kind of giggled out loud with joy when I was out the range shooting that thing. So that's what brought me to Whiteman. And coming from Alaska, my family, to be honest, was not real excited about leaving Alaska. They loved it so much. But what ended up making me love this wing the most, and my family as well, were the people here, the people in this mission that bring me back. Now, that's why we're all back for a special event. There's something about this wing that makes people want to come back, which is a sign of a great organization. But from the pilots that I got to fly the airplane with throughout the rest of the wing, as a wing commander, you get the joy of going to every unit on base and seeing what they're doing, and then watching them go through various deployments, and whether it's tragedies or times of great joy, watching this wing just bond as a family was just absolutely fantastic, and it hadn't changed coming back. So, long answer for what brought me here originally.
Good. I know your wife Carla and Brig, your wife Mary, were both very big parts of this wing. You lived on base, both of you guys, when you were wing commanders. I don't. I'm a TR wing commander. Part of me wishes that, in a little way, that I did live on base and my wife was here. I think she would enjoy that a lot. And both your spouses did great stuff. And your daughter's a pilot. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, she kind of got inspired by flying here. She was going through middle school into high school. She went to Noster High School here. And some of the people there had already signed up for the UCM aviation program, great aviation school out there. And that was the first time that she really came home and said, maybe I'll think about this flying thing. And I'm like, have you not been watching me go to work in flying uniforms my entire life? But there's something about kids, they'll listen to their friends sometimes more than their family. That planted the seed, and it's gone on to where she has got about 1,000 hours of jet time now with SkyWest, and she's interviewing with major airlines right now. In fact, one coming up on Tuesday.
With United, huh?
Yeah, United's coming up on Tuesday. So
good. Well, good luck to her.
Thanks.
That would be great. And Brig also has a son that flies in the used to be part of this wing, the DM-47th guys. He's flying out with the Bulldogs. It's interesting. A lot of people in this wing have children that stay and come to this wing. That tells me a lot that parents of kids encourage their kids. The Bryants we interviewed last UTA, lots of different families that have multiple generations of people. My dad was in this wing in the 90s as a vice wing commander, Jimmy Mack's son. But I know, Brig, you were FAPE, and boy, you had a desire to come to the 442nd Wing from the moment you started on active duty, and you came up here in 38, almost every UTA for how many years to get hired?
Yeah, actually, they offered me a job on the first one. They didn't have a slot, and they told me, that's why they tell me young folks today. They say, they said there's no chance, they're not hiring right now, and I said, well, they all say that. You gotta kind of step it up and do what we call rushing, as you know, and it was, I think, 22, 23 trips I did. I went to more UTAs than most of the guys here. And I had a boss on active duty that allowed me to take the 38 pretty much any time I wanted, because I was open straight with him and said, this is what I'm trying to do. So he said, do your job. You can take a jet when you need to. Go do some training on the weekends. And I found this place to be exceptionally special. From the moment I got here, I looked at other units because you have to, but I knew where I wanted to be. And part of it was, I'm from Kansas originally, so I was close to home. We live in Missouri now as our primary home because the people here are just incredible. And it's as soon as you get back in the Midwest, you just see a difference in how you're treated by folks. And when we get to our place at the Lake of the Ozarks, my wife and I talk about it all the time. The door greeters at Walmart are happy because they're just nice people. They really enjoy living here. And that was part of it for us. We're Midwestern people. And my son, kind of like Turf was talking about, he goes all the way through college. He did great in college. It's his senior year. And he said, I'm not going to do this flying thing. And I go, well, thanks for telling me now when I can't get any money out of it. And he successfully got hired and is doing great. He's a flight lead out at and a lieutenant still out at Davis Mont, and we're going out there tomorrow actually, and we're going to see him. He's got his second baby on the way, so we're grandparents now too. So we're all getting older.
Good. And for both you guys, best job you ever had in the Air Force? What would you say it was?
That's a tough.
Yeah.
I tell you, maybe it's because I've been retired for a while, but all the jobs get a little bit better the longer I've been retired.
Isn't that the truth?
For me, I'm the kind of guy where the happy memories certainly overwhelm the bad memories. But I do, you're probably going to think it's a canned setup, but I was not asked this before. But honestly, this job in this wing was the best job I had, because it was the last job where I had a direct connection with airmen, where I could, after that, I moved on to certainly important jobs where I think I did some things that I'm proud of.
Tell us what you did after this.
For the reserve. Yeah, I left the wing here, went to the air staff, so at the Pentagon, working in operations, a job area where Borg also worked later, where you're in the place where the overall Air Force, total Force Guard Reserve and active duty, the operational part of it, which is the majority of the war fighting where it happens. You make the decisions on how people deploy, how they are equipped, what kind of force structure we're going to present, how we're going to be the meanest fighting force to scare our enemies as possible. So
is that the same job General Sabrick just came out of?
she was in the A3 as well.
Okay.
Same type of job.
She was an MA. She replaced me when I left. So
So you
was an
both
MA.
worked there, yeah.
Yeah.
She was an MA to the 3.
Okay.
So that was her principal at that point. A30 is where you were at, right?
Yep.
And A30 is a huge portion of the A3 overall structure.
So you did that, and then you were MA to the chief. Was that right after that, or did you do another job?
I did that. So that's about as good as life gets in the Pentagon, but as you'll hear in a minute, it's not as good as being here. Then I went from there down to Langley Air Combat Command, where we've always, Guard and Reserve units, we've needed some advocates at Air Combat Command to just be in the room when that 4-star is making decisions about what our forces do. And then went from there back up to be the mobilization assistant to the Chief of the Air Force Reserve, to General Scobie, we started out as lieutenants together at Ramstein, so we were, I've known him my entire career. And in that job, I did kind of backed him up whenever he was out of town, and also did some senior officer management for him. So that's what I did after I left.
So yeah, that job, you run what we call the Geo portfolio. There's 50 1-stars and 25 2-stars. And when you had that job, I was the vice here, and you called me up and said, hey, I need you to go to PACAF, to Hawaii. And I was like, sir, General Borgen said I might be the wing commander here at Whiteman someday. I don't really want to leave. And you said, no, this is probably a pretty good opportunity for you. And I did not want to leave. And I talked to both you guys and NATO, HECFED, and Jimmy Mack, just to get some advice. And anyway, it was the right move for me. So thanks for that job, number one. And number two, I didn't think I'd ever get the chance to come back to the 442nd Fighter Wing, but one thing led to another. A couple guys maybe screwed up or didn't have an opportunity, didn't want to come back here. I won't tell the whole story. And I got the opportunity to come back. And like you, I always thought the 303rd Fighter Squadron Commander job was the epitome of my life, right? Taking jets to combat and leading fighter pilots. I have been able to affect people in such a way in this job that far exceeds that. And I had no idea what half the people in this wing did until I got in this job, from CE to LRS to security forces. And that's why I tell the pilots all the time. I'm like, man, there are some great stories and great airmen in this wing. And pilots tend to be a little self-centered, right? Which is a good thing when you're flying a jet, but it's not good when you want to lead airmen, right? Lead enlisted airmen and people. I get a kick out of helping people make chief or go to UPT or whatever in the wing, and this is by far the most fun I've had leading people. How about you, Borg?
I was so fortunate. I got to be a OSF commander here, a squadron commander here. I was TERS OG for a period of time here, and then I did the vice job for about 6 months for NATO, and then took the wing. I think it's pretty obvious that all of those jobs were incredible. It was hard to leave here when I did. And I remember when you went to Hawaii after you were there about a year, you were talking to me about the wing commander job, you go, I don't know whether I want to leave this Hawaii gig. It's a pretty good deal. So I think that's what happens. You go and you open your mind up. Wing command here was incredible, but for me, I remember being very nervous about taking that job in particular because I grew up here. And I talked to NATO about that a lot. I said, you think this is smart? Because, everybody knows where the bodies are buried, quite frankly. So it turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful job. And it's probably neck and neck with the 10th Air Force Command job. And I'll tell you, the reason why is because I got to come back here and fly.
That's a cool job. And the job, I'll tell a story. When you went down to 10th Air Force the first time to be the 3, I believe, and that actually Turf knows the story too. One of our colonels kind of had a slip up, and he was supposed to go to Afghanistan and be the deputy OG.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden he kind of gets fired and he can't go. And Borg's like, well, I'll go. And he goes over to Afghanistan to be the deputy OG at Kandahar, and I was a squadron commander there, so I kind of worked for General Borgen. And the wing commander at the time there was the guy named Big Deal, General Deal, and he was going to go up from Kandahar to Bagram to be the wing commander up there. And we moved our A-10s from Kandahar to Bagram. It's called a CAS reset. It's a long story, but he liked Borg's style and leadership so much. Borg, I think it was 90 days you're supposed to go there for. Yeah. He said, hey Borg, how about you go up to Bagram with me and be my OG for another, 8 months?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah.
How'd you like to call your wife thinking you're on a 90-day deployment and go, honey, I'm not going to be home for another 8 months. I just decided to stay here. So I think that propelled your career, right?
It certainly had an impact on it because it was a busy fighting season. And what I found out was that when we push guys out to go do things like you did in Hawaii, like you did out at Suffolk in the joint arena, it opens your eyes to what's going on. And I will tell you, I was woefully behind my peers in that job, and it was apparent to me. And I just pretty much worked 24 hours a day. Crew rest was, because I didn't want to fail. But it really taught me how important it is to get out and understand the Air Force as a whole, because if you're placed in a position like that and you're not as qualified as you should be, it's a struggle. And I love that job, but it's the hardest I've ever worked in my life, and that's including bucket hay on the farm.
Yeah.
It was a tough job, but it was fulfilling. You talked a little bit nasty about, and I know you're a gregarious guy. You talked about the ability to affect airmen's lives, and I think the wing is certainly a perfect place to do that. And it's still small enough with 800 to 1,000 people where you pretty much can get to know most of them, and you can really get internalized into what makes them tick and what their needs are. I saw at 10th Air Force, we had roughly 20,000 people, and we were on the road about 70% of the time, and you get to take that same capability with your team, and I had the chief with me on everything. I've been blessed, one of them's here, I've been blessed with having the greatest chiefs in every job that I've been in. It's just been phenomenal. And we got to go out and affect those things, and we had a system where, if someone had a problem, we took that note down, and then we had someone get back with them directly. And so that impact and the fact that they know you care, it's very gratifying to be able to affect someone in a positive way. As Turf said, I remember some of the bad things that went on through all those jobs because some of them were pretty prolific.
Sure.
But what I really remember are the good things that went on in every job that was there. The last job I had was my least favorite. It was at the Pentagon. And I don't think it's just because it was the Pentagon. I think it's the times we're in terms of shortages of money, and you felt like you were failing every day because we just couldn't get things done. And that was tough. My wife talked to me, and she, to your point, that phone call from Afghanistan was difficult.
I bet.
And she was very supportive, but I think she might still be a little pissed off to this day.
I heard if you guys YouTube it out there, I heard a speech from General Welsh, who used to be chief at the Air Force Academy, when he was telling a story about leading airmen as your safety commander, and he went through 15, 20 pictures of airmen and told the story of each person. And the whole premise of his speech was, you're getting ready to go lead as Air Force Academy graduates. If you don't know the airman's story, you can't lead them, right? And that's why we do this, to hear people's story in the wing, so everybody in the wing can get to know each other a little better, and then I find it valuable to lead airmen. All right, Chief Nudd. Chief Barron does not like to do these podcasts. He's shy. He hasn't been on one. So you're the command chief we've had. We had a chief on, but not a command chief. Talk to me about like your career and command chief role. Like most of them, not all, a lot of them are AGRs now. But you were a TR command chief, right?
Yes, sir.
And what was your background before that?
Well, it's kind of a varied and mixed background. I started out as an ammo troop.
Okay. Where?
Our first base was an A-10 base, RAF Bentwaters, England.
Sweet.
Proudly served 6 squadrons A-10s, the largest fighter wing in the world at the time. From there, I transitioned to Hill Air Force Base with the F-16s, did a stint in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, got short tour credit for that, went back to Hill for another 3 years. England really grew on me, a lot of family heritage there. So I volunteered to go back, and I got stationed at RAF Lakenheath with the F-15s. And during that tour there, that's where I became friends with a lot of people in the 442nd at Aviano Air Base. Worked with the ammo troops there in 1995, and a lot of them, like I said, became real good friends. A lot of them off duty, and they tried to coax me back in 1995 to join the 442nd. I was like, I'm having too much fun. And then post Lakenheath, I got stationed at RAF McConnell, and it was B-1s and tankers, and I saw the B-1s transition to the Air National Guard. I was the only active duty ammo troop left after the transition, and the Air National Guard came a-calling and said, hey, you quit moving around so much and join our team. So I kind of liked what I saw with the Air National Guard. It was my first initial immersion into military and family kind of rolled into one. I did that for about 4 years, and then I retired and just went straight civil service. And as fate would have it, I'm a civilian at Headquarters Air Mobility Command, and we're having a big safety conference. And in pilot terms, I was a glorified snacko for the conference. And a guy shows up in a fighter pilot suit with a A-10 patch on. So I immediately beelined over, and it was Pat Murphy, Lieutenant Colonel Pat Murphy. And we started talking, and he goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm a civilian here at AMC, and as luck would have it, I'm at 4th Air Force running their weapons safety program, but 4th Air Force was downsizing. And Colonel Murphy says, here's your second chance to join the 442nd. And I wasn't going to let that slip and hope for a third time. So Colonel Murphy brought me to the 442nd, worked for Colonel Clemens for about 2 years.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I'm still a little PC, so I'll pass on that and move on to the next one. And then as fate would have it, a lot of the friends and relationships I made over the years, I got a call and asked to come to the Pentagon, where I think we all ended up spending quite a bit of time. And I was basically the chief, the contingency cell for munitions. And
as a chief?
As a chief.
But you're a TR, you're living in Utah?
I was living in St. Louis at the time.
St. Louis.
At Scott still, as a civilian.
What was your civilian job?
So I was the Deputy Chief of Weapons Safety for Air Mobility Command.
DOD civilian job.
Yes.
We talk about statuses, they talked about it a lot at the conference, and the ability for enlisted or officers to change status. I don't know, Turf, were you in ART ever?
Never in ART.
But a lot of AGR, a lot of active duty time, correct?
Correct.
And Borg was in ART, and being able to change statuses within the reserves is the key to people's success in their careers.
Yeah, and it was easier in the reserves than it was the National Guard, because I think it's called accepted civil service in the National Guard. So I was a WS employee there. And when my civilian job moved me to Scott, it wasn't a simple transition. You don't have half the privileges of priority placement or the clearinghouse or anything like we have in the reserves.
Sure.
So I had to kind of find my own. I actually went to the IR for 2 years, and that was when 4th Air Force came calling, and that's how I ended up jumping back into the service. So a lot of people make fun of me for retiring like 3 times out of the military, but I was technically retired from the Air National Guard when I joined the reserves.
Joined back in the reserves.
Yeah, I was like 39 years old, and the recruiter called me up, and I said, I'm too old. And they said, no, you're young by reserve standards. So
you mentioned Aviano. When I started going to Aviano in 94, and I called my dad up, and I go, this is pretty cool. Low threat, high per diem more. I'm getting $75 a day staying in a 5-star hotel, but little did I know that in 6 years or so we'd be living in tents with mosquito netting around us and eating MREs for the rest of my career.
You guys were in Piancavala, and I was in the tents on the golf course.
Okay, yeah, we were in Piancavala, which was unbelievable.
It's glorious.
Yeah.
So anyways, fast forward, 2 years go by, sir, and I get a call from General Overturf saying, hey, how would you like to come back and be my command chief? And I said, I'd absolutely love it. A small town guy from upstate New York. And like I said, nothing meant more to me than my time here at Whiteman. That's going to kind of answer one of your follow-on questions. because a lot of similarities between the people here in the 442nd in a small town. Everybody knows your name, kind of a play off the Cheers song.
Sure.
And it was the same here. Even coming back 6-7 years after retirement, you see all these young kids that you were able to influence their path, and seeing them in key positions now, like you mentioned today.
So Turf hired you, and then did you work for NATO too?
Funny story is, as I was going out the door, he gave me my Senior Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year plaque as I was out processing. And then I came back and worked for him for the short amount of time he had left, and then I inherited NATO, General Hegvet.
And you were Borg's command chief too?
For about his first year, maybe.
About a year.
Yeah, and then you hired Lisa Fergs.
Yep.
Okay.
So I leave here. I put my retirement paperwork in, and maybe a month or so before my retirement, General Borg and I got a phone call. There was some needs at Luke Air Force Base, so I kind of General Scobie worked some magic for me. I pulled my retirement paperwork again, and I went down and worked for Colonel Cook and called my career there. Got him set up. Got him a great command chief. The gentleman we hired went on to be Borg's command chief at
Chewy Cook. You worked for Chewy Cook?
Opie.
No, Opie.
Opie Cook.
Opie Cook. Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah.
And the guy before him, Huevos, Colonel Gallegos. There's a lot of
He's a
stories
legend.
there.
Yeah, Huevos is a legend.
So, but long story short is, since we brought family into the equation, my daughter was joining the reserves. Heavily tried to influence her to be an ammo troop, and she said, "Dad, I can't do that." She goes, "I want to make my own footprints in the sand, not necessarily follow yours so much." So she went on to be an aerial porter, a 2T2, and she did it for about 4 years, and then she got commissioned. General Borgen commissioned her. She graduated with Matt, the same class.
That's cool.
And they're actually currently stationed together at DM in the same unit. My daughter's intel now. And so she's working on there. And I still think of the chance encounter that she had with General Overturf in Korea. She's sitting at the BX at Osan eating her lunch, and she looks over and she's sitting next to a 2-star. And she goes, "I think I know him." And so she runs back into the hallway and calls me. I said, "Go say hi to him." So she went over, and the next thing you know, they struck up a conversation, and she probably got some mentoring from him.
You guys, I mean, you don't realize it, but like mentoring airmen, what you probably did on the enlisted side, what you two guys did, but like when I was squadron commander, pre-squadron commander, I still remember you, Turf, when I got my ODP or whatever, and you're like, "Hey, Nasty, you've won the wars. It's time to go win the staff," right? And I still remember that. And you were right, just like Borg said. Like when I went to PACAF, I was not real intelligent on A, how a staff worked, but B, the mission that they did daily, the competition between China and the United States on a daily basis just blew my mind. And I learned more in the 11 months I was at PACAF than any other job I've ever had about F-35s, F-22s, intercepts, ROEs, how the three Indo-PACOM and COCOMs work together, and just unbelievable amount of knowledge that I was able to learn by going to that job. They just don't get here.
I think of it as just an extension of taking care of airmen, because really getting the mission done is about taking care of the airmen, then just getting the heck out of the way and letting them run with it. And if I talk to someone who wants to leave the unit, I'm really suspicious.
I am too.
If you would have said you wanted to leave the unit, I probably would have moved on to someone else to maybe go to bigger and better things.
Yeah, we actually had a conversation when I was going to 10th Air Force the first time when I worked as leading the squadron. And I went to him about that job over in Bagram, and he goes, "Just shut up and go do your staff tour like you're supposed to." And then I get a call from him about 3 months later, and he's like, "Hey, can you go to Afghanistan?"
Yeah.
But I'm with him. If someone says they want to leave the unit program, I'm a little curious what their overall leadership qualities are going to be.
Sure.
They're pursuing their own career and not the airmen. But really, the reason you have to go do these staff things is now you're not taking care of individual airmen or individual units. You're taking care of thousands of airmen if you do your job right.
That's
and make it a lot
right.
easier for them.
What I'd like to stress, like, I had newcomers this morning, and one story that hit me was a guy coming back from COVID that we kicked out with an LOR, and I apologize profusely to him. He's back. We've had 4 or 5 come back from COVID, which is awesome. But secondly, how many opportunities in the reserves that there are for these folks that don't, like the one guy, he was at Carswell, but he's closer to this base, so he wants to drill up here. He's an ammo guy from maintenance too, I believe. And a lot of them don't understand the IMA world and different ways to serve and keep serving. Maybe do an IMA job for a couple of years, and you're busy with raising kids, and you throttle back, or you change statuses, and you want to do something else, and then you jump into another wing somewhere else. There's all kinds of jobs worldwide in the Air Force Reserves, at USAFE, at PACAF, here, at Scott, like a lot of opportunities that I didn't really know about. But I like when people go, like the guy that lives down by Cannon Range, I go, we have 11 positions down there. You could work down there as well. So you came back, Chief, as the command chief, and then after that, what did you do over in USAFE?
So over in USAFE, I was actually the division chief for weapon safety and nuclear surety for both USAFE and Africa.
As a civilian?
Yes, sir. So I ran the division, had nuclear, conventional, and weapons loaders all working for me, and actually connected with General Searle a couple times on business that we were dealing with over there. And it was one of my predecessors, the gentleman I took over, was actually his wife was a member of our unit, Brian and Carol Tripp. I took over for BT. So the networking from Whiteman, no matter where you go in the world, there's always a connection. And so he kind of linked me up, said, hey, you really got to consider this job. You're the right person, the right time, the right fit. So I met him down in Warrensburg. We had breakfast, and after the conversation, I actually threw my name in the hat for the job, and was lucky enough to get picked up for it. But it was an exciting 3 years.
Did you make your way to Oktoberfest?
The very first year. Then after that, it was canceled for the next 2 years because of COVID. So we had COVID. We had the Afghan refugees, and then I had almost the first year of the Ukraine crisis going on. So it was a busy time over there.
Good stories from this wing. I interviewed them. They didn't want their names. We'll call them Harry and Lloyd from Dumb and Dumber. 2 airmen that volunteered to go to USAFE for 6 months, not knowing what the job. Well, the first guy was going to be a weapons dude, so his job was to.
He worked across the street from me.
Yes, you know who it is. He logistically got the weapons. He did such a good job they wanted him to stay for 2 or 3 years, but he couldn't because of his family. But he did an awesome job. The other guy was a security forces guy that ended up being with a LRO sent to Romania. Got his own Black Hawk helicopter, and he would deliver weapons to the Ukrainians like in the middle of the night. This like Black Ops stuff. This is a security forces guy from the 442nd that is in charge of running convoys to the Ukrainians to deliver weapons. Just like from a volunteer deployment deal.
Do you know I had Thor in our office too, right?
Thor Shelton.
Yeah. So he was over there as an IMA.
Yep.
To further reinforce your story about the IMAs and the opportunities. So
I said, hey man, he was at the end of his flying career. His wife's from Italy. He kind of started up a safety deal out in Aviano, and he's a smart guy. I was glad to see him get a job over there.
It was awesome. Of course, COVID kind of limited his ability to come over and drill with us because of the country rules. Yeah. And then right after he left, then we had Chaplain Hayden come over. So he's an IMA over in USAFE right now.
Good. You guys got any Leo Brown stories for me, or how many change commands retirements you've sat through that Leo's led?
Oh, the voice of the 442nd is completely accurate. It's funny. I'll talk to people when I told them I was coming out here, they go, I don't remember Leo Brown. Then I'll say, do you remember this ceremony? And they go, oh yeah, I remember that guy. But it wasn't his voice at ceremonies that I remember the most about him. It was his voice dealing with airmen in need. I say I remember all the happy times, but there were some tragic moments with any leadership position. We had some fatalities in the wing. Like the tractor rolls over on someone. Someone who's not expecting it out of the blue passes away, and that just sends ripples not only through a unit but through his family. And watching Leo Brown, he just had the amazing capacity to treat someone with genuine grace and dignity, but also such a caring heart to make them feel comforted. And honestly, he could do it. He could be kind of chewing out an airman who needed a good kick in the butt, or comforting a person in horrible sorrow. And he's the best I've ever seen at doing that. I get kind of choked up thinking about it, but that's what I'm here for.
Good. I hired him as my first year. I was a squadron commander, and he is actually working for the OSF because that's where the predominance of our enlisted folks were. But he considered himself working for the entire squadron, and I got a vote in that respect. What Turf said is absolutely right. I mean, having that calming voice. A guy that genuinely cares. He teaches school at a Catholic school in Kansas City, and his students absolutely love him for the same reasons that Turk talks about, that I talk about. I was so honored that he made a point to call and say, "Hey, I'm retiring. Can you make it?" It means a lot to both me and Mary that we get to be a part of this day for him. He's a special human being.
funny story. I used to, when I was a young fighter pilot, I think when Leo was our shirt, I got, Leo, you teach Catholic high school? Any chance I could come up there brief, I'll give a great speech to your class. Love to meet some of the high school students. And he goes, you were never going to be invited to my high school. And then now I still get I go, hey, I'm a wing commander and I'm a general. Can I come up? And he's kind of laughing. So Leo, if you're listening, the offer still stands. So come up and I promise it'll be PG-13. Well, that's great. You guys don't know what it means when people hear Chief Nud's back or Turf's back or Board's back. Man, people get excited to see you guys come back because you mentored a lot of people here. You meant a lot to the wing. Both you guys in particular, man, when you move up in rank, probably Chief Nud as well, you have to sacrifice your civilian job sometimes. Sometimes you do it for less pay. I know Turf and Board, maybe you too, you could have had your retirement 3 or 4 years before you retired as far as the pay, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And you do it because you love it. And that's, I had to do a pilot meeting this morning for some unfortunate incidents that have happened in 10th, and we're not flying this weekend. And I talked a little bit. Our pilots have been great. We don't have any discipline problems, but I kind of told them, like, you guys, there's 3 types. There's 3 laws in leadership. I said there's people that'll run for a wall with you. About a third of them will run through the wall for you if you're leading them, right? About a third of the other people are undecided. They're just watching the leaders, the alpha males and the females in the room, and deciding what they're going to do. And then there's another third of people that you'll never make happy, no matter what happens. But those are also the people that you kind of need to get out of your organizations because they're kind of toxic. And so that's why I told those guys in the room, if you're done deploying, if you don't want to fly here anymore, I know who you are. You can tell the people that bring down the energy in the room when they come into the squadron. There's people that lift it up. If you don't, be honest with yourself, with the guys in the room. We're trying to get another fighter mission here. We got guys busting their ass, and we want people that want to be here. And we don't want people that are toxic in this organization, that do stupid stuff, that hurt the chances of the Air Force Reserve keeping fighters down the road. So you guys mentored me a lot. I appreciate that. Appreciate you coming in and sharing some stories. And thanks for what you did, not only for the 442nd, but for the Air Force and the Air Force Reserve Command. And how many years of service did you have?
37.
How about you, Board?
34.
33.
Amazing. That's awesome. Anything to add in closing?
Just thanks for letting us be here. It's always a joy to come back. Seen so many people. It's Old Home Week for us. It's a great time.
Good, Turf.
Yeah, just thanks for having us and for this wing. Keep doing what you're doing. This wing is the best I've ever seen at getting the combat mission done. Going down range and getting the JOB done. Just keep doing it. Don't let all those let Nasty handle all that stuff coming from the outside. You just keep doing what you're doing.
Awesome. Chief?
Easy, sir. Same comments as the generals. Just love coming home. Thanks for the warm welcomes and not forgetting who we are. And keep kicking ass, guys. Gals.